Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. The sun beat down as sweat dripped from beneath the brim of a worn baseball cap. Pausing to wipe his brow, the slender figure in baggy jeans and an oversized t-shirt consulted a crumpled list. Brown eyes squinted at the scrawled addresses, checking them off one by one. Just a few more deliveries and he could call it a day. "Hey, Jenny!" A high-pitched voice rang out, shattering the silence. Startled, he whipped around to see a girl from his math class waving enthusiastically from across the street. Confusion furrowed his brow. Jenny? That wasn't his name. Hey, he called back awkwardly, lifting a hand in a half-hearted wave. The girl beamed and skipped away, leaving him bewildered in her wake. Shaking his head, he turned back to the task at hand. Maybe she'd mistaken him for someone else. It wouldn't be the first time. His shaggy hair and slight build often led to mix-ups. With a shrug, he grabbed another stack of flyers and continued on his route. The sun was dipping low on the horizon by the time he finished his last delivery. Muscles aching, he began the long trek home, eager for a cold drink and a chance to put his feet up. As he navigated the familiar streets, his mind wandered back to the strange encounter earlier. Why had that girl called him Jenny? Lost in thought, he almost missed the rustling coming from his wagon. Frowning, he peered into the back, expecting to find a stray cat or maybe some litter blown in by the wind. Instead, his eyes widened at the sight of several unfamiliar items nestled among the remaining flyers. Glancing around furtively, he reached in and pulled out a silky blue dress. His breath caught in his throat as he ran his fingers over the soft fabric. A pair of strappy high heels tumbled out next, followed by a floral skirt and some makeup. Heat rose to his cheeks as he hastily shoved everything back under the remaining papers. His heart raced as he pieced together what must have happened. That girl, she must have snuck these things into his wagon when he wasn't looking. But why? The rest of the journey home passed in a daze. He kept stealing glances at his cargo, half expecting the mysterious items to disappear. By the time he reached his driveway, the sun had set completely, cloaking the neighborhood in shadows. Hands trembling slightly, he gathered up the clothes and makeup, wrapping them in an old newspaper. Tucking the bundle under his arm, he crept into the silent house. Luck was on his side. His parents were working late again. Up in the safety of his room, he carefully unwrapped his illicit cargo. The dress shimmered in the dim light, looking impossibly delicate. The heels gleamed, their sharp points both alluring and intimidating. A small makeup bag revealed an array of unfamiliar products. Mascara, lipstick, blush. For a long moment, he simply stared at the items spread across his bed. This was crazy. He should just get rid of it all, pretend it never happened. And yet, before he could talk himself out of it, he was stripping off his dusty work clothes. The dress slid over his head in a whisper of silk, cool against his skin. It hung loosely on his slim frame. But even so, the effect was startling. Wobbling slightly, he stepped into the heels, gripping his dresser for balance. His reflection in the mirror was a stranger. Softer, more delicate. Long lashes framed wide eyes as he experimentally applied some mascara. A swipe of pink lipstick completed the transformation. The person staring back at him was undeniably feminine. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. His heart pounded as he twirled experimentally, watching the skirt flare out around his legs. A wave of exhaustion suddenly washed over him. The long day of deliveries, coupled with the emotional roller coaster of the last hour, left him drained. Without bothering to change, he collapsed onto his bed, eyelids already drooping. His last thought before sleep claimed him was a vague worry about explaining the clothes to his parents. Sunlight streaming through the window roused him from a deep slumber. Blinking groggily, he stretched, noticing immediately that something felt off. The silk dress clung to unfamiliar body that was decidedly not his own. Bolting upright, he stared down at himself in growing horror and fascination. His waist had narrowed dramatically, offset by wider hips and shapely legs. Trembling fingers explored this new body, tracing curves and valleys that hadn't existed mere hours ago. It was impossible. And yet the evidence was undeniable. Somehow, overnight, he had transformed into a girl. Stumbling to the mirror, he gaped at his reflection. The changes went beyond just his body. His face had softened, features becoming more delicate and feminine. Long, silky hair tumbled past his shoulders in loose waves. Even his eyes seemed larger, framed by thick lashes. "This can't be happening," he whispered, voice higher and melodic. The sound of her new voice sent fresh shockwaves through her system. This was real. Somehow, impossibly, she had become a girl. Panic bubbled up in her chest as the full implications began to sink in. How would she explain this to her parents, to her teachers and classmates? How could she possibly go back to her old life looking like this? Taking a deep breath, she forced herself to think rationally. There had to be an explanation for this. Maybe it was all an elaborate dream or some kind of hallucination. She pinched herself hard, wincing at the sharp pain. Nope, definitely awake. Her gaze fell on the makeup bag still lying on her bed. The girl who had called her Jenny. Could she be behind this somehow? It seemed impossible, and yet so did spontaneously changing gender overnight. A glance at the clock showed it was still early. Her parents wouldn't be up for hours yet. That gave her some time to figure out what to do next. First things first, she needed to get out of this dress and into some normal clothes. Rifling through her closet proved frustrating. Nothing fit properly anymore. Shirts that had once been baggy now strained across her chest. Pants refused to button over her new, curvier hips. In desperation, she turned back to the clothes that had started this whole mess. The skirt at least allowed for her changed proportions, and a stretchy top accommodated her new assets. It wasn't ideal, but it would have to do for now. Fully dressed, she paced her room, mind racing. She couldn't stay here. Her parents would freak out if they saw her like this. But where could she go? The answer came to her in a flash. The girl from yesterday. She had to know something about what was happening. Finding her was the only lead she had. Decision made, she gathered up some essentials in a backpack. Scrawling a quick note about staying at a friend's house, she crept downstairs and out the front door. The cool morning air raised goosebumps on her bare legs as she set off down the familiar streets. It wasn't until she reached the school that she realized a flaw in her plan. She had no idea where the girl lived or even what her name was. Slumping onto a bench, she buried her face in her hands. Now what? "Jenny, is that you?" Her head snapped up at the sound of that voice. It was her, the girl from yesterday. Up close, she could see the girl had vibrant green eyes and a smattering of freckles across her nose. Yeah, it's me," she stammered, unsure how else to respond. "Listen, I need to talk to you about—" "Oh my gosh, you look amazing," the girl interrupted, clapping her hands excitedly. "I knew those clothes would suit you perfectly. Come on, we have so much to talk about." Before she could protest, the girl had grabbed her hand and was pulling her along. They wound through residential streets until they reached a quaint 2-story house with a white picket fence. "My parents are out of town," the girl explained as she unlocked the front door. "We'll have plenty of privacy to get you all sorted out." Stepping inside, she found herself in a cozy living room. Family photos lined the walls, showing the green-eyed girl at various ages alongside smiling parents. It all looked so normal, at odds with the surreal situation she found herself in. "I'm Megan, by the way," the girl said, plopping onto a floral print couch. "Sorry I didn't introduce myself properly yesterday. I was just so excited to finally meet you." "Meet me?" she echoed, confusion evident in her voice. "What do you mean? And how do you know the name Jenny?" Megan's eyes widened. "Oh gosh, you really don't know, do you? I thought for sure once you put on the clothes—" "Well, I guess I'd better explain everything." Over the next hour, Megan wove a tale that sounded like something out of a fantasy novel. She spoke of ancient magics, of souls born into the wrong bodies, of a secret society dedicated to helping people become their true selves. "We've been watching you for a while," Megan explained. "We could see your inner self struggling to break free. The clothes were enchanted to help release your true form, to let Jenny out, so to speak." It was a lot to take in. Part of her wanted to dismiss it all as ridiculous. And yet, how else could she explain her overnight transformation? "So, this is permanent?" she asked hesitantly, gesturing to her new body. Megan nodded. "The magic simply revealed who you truly are inside. You've always been Jenny. Now your outside matches your inside." The words resonated deep within her. She thought back to all the times she'd felt out of place, uncomfortable in her own skin. The sense of rightness she'd felt when she first put on the dress. Maybe this explained everything. I think I understand," she said slowly. "But what happens now? I can't exactly go back to my old life looking like this." "Don't worry, we've got it all figured out," Megan assured her. "We've already taken care of the paperwork. As far as anyone knows, you've always been Jenny. Your parents, your school, everyone will remember you as a girl." It seemed impossible, and yet after everything else, she found herself believing it. A weight she hadn't even realized she'd been carrying lifted from her shoulders. She could be herself, her true self, without fear or shame. "Thank you," she whispered, tears pricking at her eyes. "I don't know how I can ever repay you for this." Megan smiled warmly. "Just live your life as the amazing girl you are. That's all the thanks we need." The next few hours passed in a whirlwind as Megan helped her settle into her new identity. They went shopping for a proper wardrobe, giggling together as they tried on outfits. Megan patiently taught her the intricacies of makeup application and hairstyling. By the time evening rolled around, Jenny felt like a completely different person, or rather like she was finally the person she was always meant to be. Looking at her reflection, she saw not a stranger, but her true self staring back. "Ready to go home?" Megan asked gently. Jenny took a deep breath and nodded. It was time to embrace her new life fully. The walk back to her house felt both familiar and strange. Everything looked the same, and yet her perspective had shifted dramatically. As they approached her front door, she felt a flutter of nerves in her stomach. "It'll be fine," Megan reassured her. "Remember, to them, nothing has changed. You've always been their daughter." With a final squeeze of her hand, Megan waved goodbye and headed off down the street. Jenny watched her go, feeling a mix of gratitude and trepidation. Then, squaring her shoulders, she opened the door and stepped inside. "Jenny, is that you?" Her mother's voice called from the kitchen. "Dinner's almost ready." "Coming, Mom," she replied, marveling at how natural it felt. As she joined her family at the dinner table, she was struck by how ordinary it all seemed. Her parents chatted about their days, her little brother complained about homework. No one batted an eye at her appearance or treated her any differently. That night, as she got ready for bed, Jenny caught sight of herself in the mirror. The face looking back at her was still new in many ways, and yet it felt more familiar than her old reflection ever had. For the first time in her life, she felt truly comfortable in her own skin. As she drifted off to sleep, a smile played across her lips. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as she navigated life as her authentic self. But for now, she was content in the knowledge that she was finally, truly herself. The weeks that followed were a period of adjustment and discovery for Jenny. Each day brought new experiences as she settled into her life as a young woman. There were moments of joy, like the first time she went shopping with her mom for bras, giggling together over the vast array of styles and colors. And there were moments of frustration, like learning to deal with the unwanted attention from some of the boys at school. Through it all, Megan remained a constant source of support and guidance. The two girls became inseparable, with Megan patiently answering Jenny's many questions about life as a girl. They spent long afternoons painting each other's nails and swapping clothes, reveling in the simple pleasures of female friendship. At school, Jenny was surprised to find that her social circle expanded almost overnight. Girls who had barely given her a second glance before now invited her to sleepovers and study groups. She found herself navigating the complex world of high school cliques and drama with a newfound confidence. Of course, not everything was smooth sailing. There were still moments when Jenny felt out of place or unsure of herself. The first time she got her period was a particularly harrowing experience, leaving her feeling vulnerable and overwhelmed. But with Megan's support and her own growing resilience, she learned to take such challenges in stride. As the months passed, Jenny's new life began to feel less like a dream and more like reality. The memory of her old self began to fade, replaced by the joy of living authentically. She threw herself into new hobbies, joining the cheerleading squad and taking up photography. Her grades improved as she no longer felt the constant discomfort that had distracted her before. One day, as Jenny and Megan strolled through the park, arm in arm, Jenny found herself reflecting on how much her life had changed. "I can hardly remember what it was like before," she mused, watching a group of children play on the swings. "It feels like I've always been this way." Megan squeezed her hand. "That's because this is who you were always meant to be. The magic just helped you become your true self." Jenny nodded, a warm feeling spreading through her chest. "I don't think I ever properly thanked you, for everything you did for me." "You don't need to thank me," Megan replied with a soft smile. "Seeing you happy and thriving is all the thanks I need." As they continued their walk, Jenny's thoughts turned to the future. For the first time in her life, she felt excited about what lay ahead. College applications, careers, relationships, all of it seemed full of possibility now that she was living as her authentic self. The sun was setting as they made their way back home, casting long shadows across the quiet streets. Jenny paused for a moment, taking in the beauty of the moment. She said thoughtfully, "I used to be scared of the future. It always felt like something was missing, like I was living someone else's life. But now I can't wait to see what comes next." Megan beamed at her, green eyes sparkling. "That's the magic of being true to yourself. The whole world opens up when you're no longer hiding who you really are." As they said their goodbyes at Jenny's front door, she felt a surge of gratitude for the twist of fate that had brought Megan into her life. Without her, who knows how long Jenny might have continued living in discomfort and confusion. That night, as she got ready for bed, Jenny caught sight of herself in the mirror. The face looking back at her was now comfortingly familiar, the face of a confident young woman ready to take on the world. With a contented smile, she turned off the light and slipped under the covers, eager to see what new adventures tomorrow would bring. In the years that followed, Jenny's life continued to flourish. She graduated high school with honors and was accepted to her dream college. There, she threw herself into her studies with passion, majoring in psychology with a minor in gender studies. Her own experiences had sparked a deep interest in helping others navigate issues of identity and self-discovery. Throughout it all, her friendship with Megan remained strong. Though they attended different colleges, they made time for regular video chats and visits during breaks. Megan was there to offer support during Jenny's first serious relationship and subsequent heartbreak, just as Jenny was there for Megan when she came out as bisexual to her conservative parents. As they entered their mid-20s, both women found themselves settling into careers they loved. Jenny became a counselor specializing in trans youth, using her unique perspective to help young people struggling with their identities. Megan, with her gift for magic and helping others, joined a discreet organization dedicated to assisting transgender individuals in their transitions. One warm summer evening, nearly a decade after Jenny's transformation, the two friends met for dinner at their favorite cafe. As they sipped wine and caught up on each other's lives, Jenny found herself overcome with emotion. She said, reaching across the table to squeeze Megan's hand. "I don't think I ever truly understood the impact of what you did for me until I started working with my clients. Seeing their struggles, their pain, It makes me realize just how lucky I was to have you in my corner." Megan's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "Oh, Jenny, you give me too much credit. All I did was give you the tools to become who you always were inside. You're the one who had the courage to embrace your true self." They shared a warm smile, the kind that comes from years of deep friendship and shared experiences. As they raised their glasses in a toast, Jenny felt a profound sense of contentment wash over her. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.